Well, there's two things. One, we're losing by having no regulation and all the uncertainty, we're
Mm-hmm.
losing businesses to overseas. If you look at the FTX arena in Miami, who just paid a lot of money, or crypto.com, who just
Mm-hmm.
renamed the Staples Center, or we did a deal with the Mavs with
Right.
Voyager. All of them are based outside the United States, run by Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So when you
Mm-hmm.
talk to them, they would love to have those companies based here, but they don't know if
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be legislated out of existence. And
Right.
because Singapore and other countries other than China recognize the opportunity in having these companies there with, the employment they bring, the tax dollars they bring, they've realized that it's better to simplify. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's not that regulation is bad. And I know there's a libertarian underpinning to all crypto, and I understand that. But the
Mm-hmm.
reality is if we can get, strong enough touch legislation that the people who like a lot of legislation feel that they accomplished something, but not so strong that it inhibits innovation, then I think we can bring those companies back here because having talked to all their CEOs, they'd rather be home in the United States where they grew up. Um, but you need to have some legislation. And then there's consumer protection. You know, there's a lot of discussion about Tether as a stable coin and where their money is and what would happen if, there was a run there, and I don't have the answer. There's other people who are a lot more knowledgeable on that. But the reality is, if you're going to say it's just basic advertising law, right? And
Mm-hmm.
FTC law. If you're going to say you're pegged to the dollar, you need to be pegged to the dollar, and there's got to be a
Right.
way to deal with that fraud if it's not if you're not pegged to the dollar. And once they are, excuse me, then it becomes a laissez-faire market. And look, I'm recommending to my Shark Tank companies and other investments that are non-crypto based to take a percentage of any cash that they may have, and rather than having it in a checking or savings account, have
Mm-hmm.
it in an account that can earn you 7, 8, 9% on USDC. And the next
Mm-hmm.
question is, well, how can they pay 7, 8, 9%? It's because
Mm-hmm.
people want to borrow it, and if they're
Mm-hmm.
willing to pay that because USDC and Tether are, are usable in any crypto type application or purchase, whether it's for, to speculate or to buy Mavs tickets, or NFTs or whatever you choose, then, it's no different than currency exchange. It's just, the rates that the market will bear. And so I think we need stablecoin, definitive stablecoin definitions and legislation
Mm-hmm.
to enforce that. I
Mm-hmm.
think from an IRS perspective, I expect that any wallet that has more than $10,000 worth of whatever is won't
Mm-hmm.
be able to be anonymous. And for those of us who
Right.
have gotten doxxed, and people know our
Mm-hmm.
wallets, it's not that big a
Mm-hmm.
deal. But I think, it'll push those people who that want to remain anonymous overseas, but that's okay,
Mm-hmm.
because the people who are crooks are going to go do cold storage anyways and have a Tether in their back pocket, and you're not going to see that stuff anyways. But for everybody else, you want to make it a little bit easier for you to do your taxes and
Mm-hmm.
for, the IRS to do their job, because otherwise you're just going to have everybody outside the crypto industry using that as an excuse on why we need more legislation. And as long as everybody's always asking for more legislation, it's going to be harder to do. And I'll go back to Uber and Lyft again, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Uber, literally, almost invested in Uber, right? I actually had funded Travis Kalanick's previous company, and we got into a battle about dealing with regulation and legislation and how much it's going to cost to market all this and deal with all that. And, I told him I don't want to invest hundreds of millions of dollars to do tens of millions in revenue or billions of dollars. And so you've got to recognize that as long as people think you need more regulation, it's going to cost you more and more and more and more to fight it. It's better to get, acceptable legislation and regulation so you can go about being a great entrepreneur and starting a great company. There aren't a lot of industries that haven't that haven't grown simply because of regulation, and that would be
Mm-hmm.
bad, right?
Right.
And chances are they, unfortunately they may be it. And so hopefully we can get them to do some, bright line documentation because,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people, for the most part, 99% of people aren't looking to intentionally break the law. But if you're a regulator looking for anything on the margin, and there's not bright lines to help people know what they can and can't do, you're going to find violators, and that's going to make things worse. So, and going back to the infrastructure bill, and how they treat brokers, et cetera, there's a lot of people trying to evolve that already. And so hopefully, for last thing I read, they were not going to treat non-brokers as brokers. It's only those who act as brokers that'll be treated as brokers. And that's fine, because if you look at all the centralized exchanges in particular, they know they're brokers, and they're trying to follow all they're trying to deal with expected regulation already. And that's okay to them because they're making so much money. There's a reason why FTX can go, sponsor the former American Airlines arena, why, crypto.com can kick off Staples Center, in Los Angeles, because they're making so much money. Back in the early days of .com, the companies would raise a lot of money and try to spend those on big marketing splashes, but they weren't making money. They were just raising money. The difference here is, FTX has gone out and raised a lot of money. I don't know if crypto.com has or how much they've raised, but they're actually profitable and generating, in some cases, millions of dollars per day in profits, not sales, not top line, bottom line, by just selling that spread. And so, it's just a different beast. And I think the right regulation will make the industry even stronger here in the U.S.